Now, my Monday afternoon guest is also known as America's Accountant, and he recently authored a book called Dogs Taught Me Everything I Know About Business. Maybe there's something in there about taxes, too. We'll see. What we want to talk to him about today is filing your taxes and the common mistakes that people make. I remember my dad's unique take on tax time. He'd always say, you know, I don't mind paying a lot in taxes because that means I made a lot of money. Well, that was a pretty interesting spin, I think. And with that in mind, I'm going to get our next guest on to see what he's got to say about it. Please welcome into the show, Mr. Dan Geltrude, coming to us all the way from Nutley, New Jersey. Dan, thanks for being on the show. My dad said, hey, I don't mind paying a lot because it means I made a lot. I don't think a lot of folks would agree with him on that one, but hey.
Well, that's a pretty optimistic view, and
Right.
I don't think your dad was necessarily wrong, because when you have a progressive tax system, that's exactly what it means. The more you make, the more you pay. Of course, the other side of that argument is those that can afford to have CPAs and tax attorneys, well, somehow they figure out the way to pay, well, as little as possible, shall we say.
Agreed. So this time of year, like I said in the monologue, I always know it's coming because that Cars for Kids ad is always on after every song. What should we look for? What are the mistakes that I may or may not make, and what can you do to help people out here?
Well, Scott, the first thing I'm going to tell you is this: file on time. So tomorrow, if your tax return is ready to go, file it. And the reason that you want to file is because you don't want to have to deal with failure to file penalties. So it's always better to file the return even if you can't pay the tax. The other thing is you have until tomorrow to max out on those IRA contributions. 50 and up, you get $8,000, and for everybody else, it's $7,000. It's a good deal. You get a tax deduction for it, and you start putting money away for retirement. Always tell people, e-file. It's the fastest way to process your tax return, and along with that, direct deposit, because if you're getting a refund, you don't want to have any delays, and that's the quickest way to get your refund. Now, I want to go back and revisit something about filing tomorrow. If your tax return is not ready, then you have the option to file an extension for 6 months. But here's the catch, Scott. You have 6 months to file the return. However, all the tax due by tomorrow.
Yeah, that's I'm well aware of that one, too. And coming from Chicago, where I've got some, let's just say some friends with some crooked noses, they always told me that it's illegal to not file, and it's also illegal to not pay, or at least you need to file and you need to pay. But they always took the road of, they always filed, even if they didn't have the money to pay, but they would never not file. They always made sure that they filed. So it's because the government was much more kind to them if they didn't have the cash versus if they just never even let the government know what was going on in the first place.
Well, they're exactly right on that one, Scott, and that's because the IRS does offer different options to work out a payment plan. So a lot of what happens here is that you have people that are serial non-filers, serial non-payers. If you don't fall into that category and there has really been a good faith effort to do the right thing, the IRS will work with you, and that's what people have to keep in mind. See a professional and then have them represent you in working out a payment plan with the IRS.
So I also know some people that have gotten to that point where they missed a year, then they missed another year, and suddenly it's 5 years down the road. What should people do that are staring at that type of a situation?
Well, you want to catch up is the word, right? But here's what happens. After the statute of limitations runs out over a 3-year period, Scott, those refunds that you would have been getting, well, they're now lost. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't be filing still, but that's why you can't allow years and years to go by, especially if you're going to be due a refund. And believe it or not, I see people that come to me in that situation, haven't filed for years, and they end up losing those refunds. So we go back to the moral of the story. Always file the return. And don't let years go by.
All right, now watch this segue. Anything in your book about Dogs Taught Me Everything I Know About Business that could apply to tax season?
Well, of course. I mean, listen, when we talk about tax season, lot of rules there, Scott. So I think that goes into the conversation we were just having of the importance of training, right? You have to be trained to do certain things at certain times. No different from our dogs. Listen, once the dog learns something, they do it over and over again. So get in some good habits of filing your tax returns on time.
And I don't know. I mean, I have no idea what the answer to this question is, but I'm assuming the book's selling pretty well.
Actually, it's doing very well, Scott. And I think the reason for that is it is a business book. No question about it. But it has such a unique take on it that you're looking at business through the eyes of our best friends, our dogs. And I think it really hits home in language. It's simple that people can really understand because it makes sense.
And what I like about it is obviously those are both dogs that one you have now and one you've lost a while back. But also, I think it's pretty clever that obviously it's a business book, like you just said, but at the same time, you're going to bring in some dog people too. So you're going to get maybe you get two birds with one stone. Maybe is what I'm thinking in my brain right now.
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely the market. Look, when I look at a Scott Shellady, here's the chapter that comes to my mind. It's called Marking Your Territory, right? which is really, Scott, about branding. So look at you. You own the cow guy. That's it. You've marked your territory. So it makes a lot of sense.
You know, I don't know. It's funny. You're right. And I have the #1 brand in the financial news media space, but there isn't a #2 though. So it's not like I won anything. Nobody else is just dumb enough to look like I do every single day. All right. Thanks, Dan, for coming on. Great stuff. Great book, by the way. Thanks for being on the show. America's Accountant Dan Geltrude telling us what